taking care of business, and just that quick forgot that I was doing a live. One Love and Wellness. Ashe family, love plus art equals wellness. I pulled over to make my call. I got a 5:30 meeting, so I just had a few things I wanted to chat about for a minute. First off, I had two conversations with two people that were from other countries. I talked to a lady that's in Trinidad right now, and she mentioned that the weather there is hotter than it's been, and they're normal Julys. And she confirmed some of the things that I had been noticing about the weather and so on, and about the satellites and so on. So we had this conversation, and she says, she says a lot of people don't pay attention to the kind of things that you're talking about, and it would be really nice if there was some regular conversations about these kinds of things that people, that the average person is not paying attention to. So that was my conversation with her. And then I went, on my way to my meeting. I did this other live, and right after that live, where I was meeting my client at just now, was another international group of, and I say international because they're just not from US, but um, they're from India. And my client, I sell copper jewelry, crystals and copper jewelry, so, or healing tools, energy and healing tools. So they came out to see, what my client was doing, and liked what she was buying, or liked the things that I had out on the table. And so the conversation began, in which a lot of Indians that I talk to talk about the copper in their country. They actually use a copper pitcher next to the bed. And I say they, on a regular, in their culture, in the Indian culture, there are things that they do related using copper. So they put the water in the pitcher, they leave the pitcher overnight, and then they drink the water in the morning. Well, so just a caveat, FYI, the gentleman, it was four or five of us, four of them were Indian. And so they say, well, since the pipes aren't copper anymore in the houses anymore, so we used to get our water through copper pipes, and so now with them using plastic pipes, that means we get particles of plastic versus copper infused water that we would be getting from our faucets or our spigots now. So and I think at some point it was said that it was not healthy, or they were removing the copper pipes because of some health code reason or whatever. But that gentleman was correct. The Indian gentleman who said that he says, well, we don't get it through our pipes any longer in this country, so we have to put it in a picture now. But this other Indian elder had told me that years ago, that that's what they do, and he's been doing most of his life. So it's not depending on whether you have copper pipes all the time. You depend on yourself, and put your water in the copper container. And again, copper is antibacterial, antifungal, antimicrobial. They're using it for instruments for surgical incisions. It helps with your brain synapses. It helps with healing. It helps with cuts and scrapes as far as healing, so your skin would heal faster. It also helps. Well, I know you've probably heard that people put the poles in their gardens to help their gardens to grow faster, or to rejuvenate, or to thrive better. So it actually does direct the energy in the earth, as well as assisting the flowers in growing. But it also helps with um, it's an energy healer. I use it like a breaker switch. So anyway, so they use this method of getting the copper infused into their bodies, and to keep them healthy. And the conversation with them went even farther, because I started talking about, well, the Sirius A, B, and C, la 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 la, or Orion's belt, blah blah blah, right? Doing my whole spiel that I've been talking about. They knew a lot of this stuff. Where we go by the lunar calendar, we are actually, tuned into the cosmological line alignments with, how we observe certain things energetically. And I was like, wow. And he says, the elder in the group, because there was like four different age groups in there. Someone who was in his teens, someone was in her 20s, someone that was in his 30s, and someone who was in his 40s. And I say age groups, but you know what I mean. There was a spectrum. Of course, I was the eldest of all of them. But very interestingly enough, um, I did not know that they were familiar with, he's the elder was saying, yeah, we're very familiar with the alignment of the Sirius alignment, Sirius constellation alignment is what he said, because I found out that Sirius is a constellation. It's not just those three planets; it's a whole cluster of stars. Like each one of those, and from what I just read, each one is another cluster of energy, and has its own like solar system and so on. So anyway, I just was so surprised that I feel like we're just so miseducated in this country, to where we're not, you know okay, well, what I spoke about earlier is that some of the Star Trek Prodigy TV series, I was totally flabbergasted, surprised, pleasantly surprised, that they present some factual information that can educate these children. It's almost like that. What was that? Conjunction, junction. What's your function? Well, they make it exciting. They throw in little blurbs of, because they gave the definition of cymatic frequencies, and they even gave the whole parameter of what it influences, how it influences, what it can do, and how it raised the building, and the building was formulated because of the sign that was written down. And it was several times that they had these kinds of signs in this series, where they had a something that only certain eyes was sensitive enough to see, to find where the key goes. And I believe that we're in one of those periods now where things are more easily seen, versus when they, let's just say, when the energy or the cosmological alignment is different. So I think, because what's his name, Ankh Aura, Cosmic Keymaker. I met him in Atlanta at Melanated Monday, one of the Melanated Mondays that I did with Red Pill and Blue Pill. I did the first one that my first time doing it, which was in January of this year, earlier, 6 months ago now. Wow, time flies. But I did. Red Pill was interviewing Black Magic 363, and I had to be in the house, and I was there, and I met all these wonderful people. So Ankh Aura was one of those, but then I also met Hank. Wow. And so both of them have visited my community, which is Temple Mother Earth in DC. And I say my community, that is a community that I feel I find a lot of like-minded persons. And so I've been sharing this information with them, and we're all building on our own, each of our information. Let me see what's going on here on the screen here. So before I check out, because I got a 5:30 meeting, so I'm gonna be moving fast. Do you like black banana? I think that if it were a black banana, that it'd probably be very nutritious. It says, so who said that? That was by Basil Sony. Bale Sony. Bale Soon or Sony. Okay. And then simple and classy respect. Ashe, one love. And that is Musha Salia Zigbane. I'm not sure if I said any of that all right. I want to smell your seat cushion, baby. Yes. Ooh, no. It said, hi, love the glasses. LOL. Let's see, who loved the glasses? Uranium soup. Uranium soap? Soup. Okay. Anyway, I got a LOL out of Nadia, Nadaya, Nadiyan. I'm terrible with names. I'm butchering them all over the place. Greetings from Nairobi, Kenya. Oh, greetings, Farmer Josie No Long. And then okay from Zany. Da, 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 da. I butcher up so much. Zany Hafiz Khan, for climate change first, you need to change yourself. Yes, and that's what I actually had to do yesterday when I got a bit of sunstroke. So I got a bit of sunstroke, and my temperature had risen to high a high temperature, and I was like, I was doing that breathing like a baby. I was relaxing so I was letting my belly rise and fall. So as I was doing that, my muscles were contracting, and I was adjusting myself. Let's put it that way. I was adjusting my back with allowing some natural things to happen for my stress to be relieved. And I know that's why the whole thing was happening, was because I was stressed. I was pressuring myself. These doggone bill collectors are on my hiney a little bit. But I'm the one that put the dates in place. And I was like, okay, I'll pay on this day and I'll pay this on that day. And so there were some things that had come together and had kind of misconstrued my whole agenda. So everything got a little adjusted, and I was stressed because I had put that pressure on myself, and I was exposing myself to some higher temperatures, and therefore ended up having a sunstroke sort of issue. But again, I learned how to control myself. I learned how to be not learned. I leaned into my learning of how to control the scenario and to control myself and to heal myself. So One Love and Wellness, Mama had overheated, popped her top, and had to get with the quickness for some fixing. And it happened, and things went well because today the temperatures aren't like right now. It's 86 degrees. This time yesterday was like 105. So big difference today. Cloud coverage. Thank you, God. Thank you, Source Energy. Thank you, Universe, for giving us a reprieve for a day, so that we can recover from this the high heat temperatures. So I want to go to a few things that I wanted to talk about. These are my notes, and let's see. I wanted to talk about the canine teeth. I wanted to talk about that. We're told that these canines are, you know, what dog they're like dog teeth, but that we have them for the purpose of, ripping and tearing, and it's called an incisor. Is it a, no, I'm sorry. It's called a cuspid. It's called a cuspid because it's got that cusp look. It looks like a V, and it has that cusp on it. Bicuspid is the next one back. But anyway, so the cuspid tooth they call that our canine tooth. And so I don't know, it just made me think about, when they say that, the dogs are our best friends, when they say that, we start to look like and resemble our dogs, because we're actually exchanging when we are in each other's environment and energy. We start to resemble each other like couples do, like married couples do, or people that have worked together for years. They start to resemble each other because they're breathing the same air, they're in the same environment, the same energy. They're starting to pick things up from each other. But I kind of found it funny that the animals do the same thing. The animals actually take on the same resemblance, because I know several people, and I know you probably do too, whose dog looks like them. You know, there are times when let me just read this. Okay, dogs in heat, take it from the black or the back. Uh, dog you out, dog on you. Uh, Doogie, teach me how to doogie. I say doogie like that because Baltimore says dog like doog, like hot doog. Um, so that's why I say teach me how to doogie. So, atomic dogs of the world unite. Raining cats and dogs. So raining as in REIGN, raining cats and dogs. Who let the dogs out? That's my dog. And I talked earlier about George Clinton running for president. Because he has a universal galactic following, and he's got this interplanetary experience. And he said he's he said that he had a interplanetary experience the night that he finished the album The Mothership Connection. He and Bootsy had just come from the studio, and they were on the road back from they were going home, I think, going back to George Clinton's place. And they had called and said, hey, we on our way. But then what happened is they saw this bright light, and what they thought was like an instant, it turned out to be several hours. But they thought that there was just a flash, and then they were back. And so in between that time when that light started and when that light ended, to them it was like this, but for that it was a couple of hours, so they missed a couple of hours. um and so thinking about the mothership connection, about him being abducted or having an interplanetary experience related to that, I at some point called my band the Mother Love, the Mother Love Experience. I still call it the Mother Love Experience, but one of my cousins, who is a fabulous keyboard player, Travis, he at one point wanted to call my band the Mother Love Connection. Um, and so, when I'm finding out that George Clinton had this experience just before the Mother Love, I'm sorry, just before the Mothership Connection album was released. It started making me think, a light bulb went on in my head, that this could, because I went to a lot of their shows. I consider myself a funketeer. I consider myself not an expert, maybe a subject matter expert in some ways, in the ways of what I interpreted from their music. And so, anyway, let me see. A dog is man's best friend. That's my dog. Okay. So I thought about George Clinton's funk, and how he talks about all these interplanetary or galactic or Egyptian, or actually he talks about Sirius. He even talks about, his one song says, where did the Dogons go? No mas, no mas, no mas, or something like that. But anyway, I thought about the fact that, how dogs sniff each other's behinds. That's like getting a whiff of their shit, um, of that funky shit. It seems to me like, because they say that the gods have golden, what do you call it, excrement, or shit gold. Let's put it that way. They say that that is one of the sayings. I don't know how true it would be to say that their body processes the and alchemizes into what could be used for some other reasons. Maybe it's a treasure, because how their bodies process, if they do release some excrement, maybe it does present in some golden fashion. I don't know. But anyway, so the episode that I was talking about earlier of these the project, the Prodigy Star Trek cartoon, I'm still on the first season. There is a second season, but on this first season, I'm just flabbergasted at how much they teach these youth, from having these little science lessons inside of and I don't know if I know they are, they probably know they're training these youth. But I remember as a child, doing ganip ganop, doing ping pong, doing arrow shooting, and doing what do you call that, BB gun shooting, because I wanted to keep my sight. I wanted to, if I ever had to grab a gun, if I ever had to grab a weapon, I wanted to make sure my sight was set, like I had a good eye for things. And so, I actually did that myself for whatever reason. As a child, thinking like this. Why would I think like this? But this is how I was thinking. Like, be ready, be ready. If you ever need to pick up a weapon, so that you can use it. So I did a lot of training on what I thought was the video games, saying, if anything ever happened, I would be able to zip zam zoom zow my way out of it. If give me a weapon, even if I don't have an overview, if it's user friendly, I can dig it. So and I think I talked earlier about the hive mind thing, but and that was one of the ways for them to learn, because the more each one of them experiences something, they bring all that information back to the all. Well, I want to also talk about that hive mindset, because I had an experience once that I did not relate it to being similar to that until I saw something happen on this cartoon, which was about when I was back in, this was the early 2000s. It was probably just after 1999, but in the early 2000s, I was into meditation, and I was doing a meditation. And while I was in my meditation, I had transported somewhere, and I had observed this Asian bridge, or something what reminded me of an Asian water scene. So there was a stream, and then there was one of those arch bridges. So standing on the top of the arch, or at the peak of the arch bridge, was, I want to say it was a person, because I heard a voice come from the bridge, and I thought it was coming from the figure that was there. But what I heard was, "Do not look upon me." And when I looked upon them, I actually, my brain scattered, and I was lost in space for like 3 days. All my marbles had spilled all over the place, and it took me like 3 days to pull all my marbles back. And if you've ever heard me tell the story, I don't believe that all the marbles that I retrieved were all mine, and I don't believe that all the marbles that were mine were returned. So some of the marbles were someone else's marbles, but I also felt like some of my marbles that did not get put back in place. So I was never the same since then. I got all I got, I'm okay, but for some reason, uh, I was never the same after that. So, in pulling myself back together. So what I saw on this program was that there was a something called a protostar that was on this Starfleet ship, and the protostar was this extremely powerful energy, and you were not to look at that energy because it was so strong that it would disassemble all your pieces, and it would um, disseminate you, accordingly. And so, what it made me think about on this cartoon, that what they said was, as far as this hive mindset, as far as, when they were all together, it just reminded me of that. How, what did they say? They said that the Zero is this little robot thing like R2D2. But anyway, Zero was a sidekick that was, she says, I'm used to, it's not a she or a he, but it's energy. I'm used to the hive mindset. There's a mission that they were on where they needed someone to be able to withstand the hive mindset, and to go into the hive and get information out. Hey, how do we disassemble this new weapon that we found on our ship? And so she was able to, the energy, Zero's energy was able to go into the hive mind and find that they concluded that it was no way to destroy this weapon without a whole bunch of, I think it was just too dangerous to destroy. And so when Zero was in the hive mind, Zero was talking about how the energy was so overwhelming that what it did was it had softened the edges, and Zero had become a part of the all. And so that's exactly how I felt when I did that meditation. Like, my edges had softened so much that my particles had spilled out and went everywhere, and that I was sensing myself in all these different places at the same time, not in one place. I was a part of the all. And so, as I said, it reminded me of this because she actually took control of herself, which again reminds me of this heat stroke that I had yesterday. In a story, a friend of mine, he had a heat stroke and or heat exhaustion or sunstroke or whatever. But what was happening, we were at a band jam. This is a saxophone player, Master Shep. So we're at the event, and he'd gotten a plate of food. He was about to eat, but he decided he'd actually just come from drum rehearsal, because he plays the djembe, so, or different parts in the djembe troupe. And so he had exerted himself. He was already in the sun, and he decided, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take in some sun. And while he was in the sun, he said he started to feel like his edges melt, like he was taking in energy as far as breathing, but that he was starting to evaporate into the all, and that he started to feel bliss. And so he decided to say, yes, let me go into the bliss. And he ended up passing out. He ended up blacking out. He ended up succumbing to the exhaustion, the heat, the whatever it was. He became a part of the all, right? And so I asked him, I says, so what was it like when you were, did you feel any pain? Was there any problem? What was what was going on with your body? He said, I felt like I was having an orgasm. He said, I felt like I was in bliss. And because he said that, when I started to have my sunstroke episode, when I started to hear and feel my body, I started seeing the pixels. I started getting lightheaded. I started feeling like I was detaching myself. And so I started doing this deep breathing thing. I started slowing my breathing down. I started, as I mentioned earlier, I started doing that, leading myself. As I said, I'm a certified breathologist. So I started coaching myself through the baby breathing part, the part that you are, that how the baby breathes, with the stomach rising and falling and rising and falling. And when it rose, it actually allowed the I don't know what you call it, the back of my back, it allowed it to relax and to de-stress and unwind. And then when I released it, or blew out the air, then I actually was able to like, I could feel my edges. I was starting to feel, because remember I was saying I was getting lightheaded and I was getting pixelated. I was seeing stars or whatever. I was starting to get what close to passing out. So I coached myself through that, and was able to bring myself back to a stable place and calm myself back down to a place where I was stabilized and available with all my faculties. So there were multiple hive mind examples that I had thought of, that I had been through in my life. I don't know if you guys remember these IT companies. IBM is still around. Xerox is sort of around. Um, uh, a lot of the tech companies that were around back in the day, they had names for their employees. Of course, I worked for Xerox, and so for Xerox, if you were an employee of Xerox, you were called a Xeroid. I think that was that hive mindset. So you could only wear certain colors. You could only, your skirt could be no more than an inch above your knee. Your earrings could be no bigger than a quarter. Your hair could only be certain colors, and if you wore certain styles, only certain styles were allowed, kind of thing. I don't even think you could wear a scarf. So anyway, it it just seems like, the things that I was learning over time, that in these little episodes, they're whole long lessons of stuff. Because now folks, the youth, the generations of our youth, they're so much farther along as far as the advancement. Their mind thinks faster. They do things faster. They came up when there were microwaves. Of course, when I was young, there was no microwave. Of course, as I got older, around junior high, high school, that's when, cable, um, because we have the fights that were on cable, the microwave was available. And if I'm not mistaken, a few years after that, the internet was starting to become available. Intranet, I think, is what I first saw, and then internet. Intranet, I think, was the government, and I was able to work with that with some of my clients. So I spoke about living waters before. H3O2, I think, is the formula for it. Um, and I wanted to make sure I said that right because I said it wrong in so many of my videos. So that is me correcting some of my errors or the errors that I made on previous episodes. When I gave the formula, I might have said H3O3. I might say H2O3, whatever the case is, it's H3O2. So I want to mention about praying over your food. And I think I have 3 more minutes before I have to be on my meeting. So I'll just try to say a few things real quick, and I may just read this over just so that I can make sure that I put these things on the record. So when you say prayers over your food, you're energizing your food, which cleans up the flow to harmonize with your ingestion and assimilates it into the frequency that allow it to be incorporated into your person, as well as through a complete or a digestion process. I wanted to talk about, and this is me, I'm going to jump all over the place. Don't get mad. I mean, this is just me just spouting out some things that I just got to get off my chest. Light bright thing. You remember as a child, we did the light brights, light bright, making things with light, da da da, making things with light bright. I remember that. Um, and so, like the erector set, the Lincoln Logs, these were the Radio Shack radios, that transistors and things that we were able to build. My parents bought me and chemistry sets. All these things are things that are building blocks that you can later on use and apply in your life. If because remember, school is to untrain your mind, but the things that I say untrained, to miseducate you kind of thing. Schools, for the most part, have been training you to be in accordance to what they would like for us as a mass mindset to be tuned into. So I noticed that on that Star Trek Prodigy, that Janeway, she said that it was a training ship that she had this crew on, these youth, these teenagers. And so I try to apply what I saw on that show to what I did in my life. And I was like, well, I've had some odd sorts of things that have come about in my. So I'm interested in chemistry. I've been interested in the stars, all the things that I did as a child. I was interested in electricity. I built electronic things. I sold stones off on the side of the street at 5 years old. All the things that I did as a child that I was interested in are now things that I do as an adult, which, back then I was interested in space. I wanted to be an astronaut. But then that got knocked off my list for some reason that somebody said at some point that I listened to that I should not have. 'Cause possibly I could have been in outer space already. But anyway, I also wanted to be a psychiatrist, but I knew that when I found out they were giving so much medication to people, I'm like, I don't want to give medicines to make, because then you're going to be like zombies. And I didn't want to be involved in that. So anyway, in that same issue where I said sleeping Borgs, let the sleeping Borgs lie, which I inverted to, or replaced the word Borgs with dogs. Let sleeping dogs lie. They talked about that each letter is like an acronym filled with energy, like a caplet of energy that it represents. And it said cymatic, when spoken, activating matter from ether's particles, which is full of particles or caplets that hold pieces of potential, like inside the inside of the insider's inside, like a dream prism with an M on the end, prism, dream. So with angles and reflections of each other. Okay, which also reminds me of, maybe I'll just finish this another time. The object of the dog in the having a dog in the fight is to assimilate and have the pack and the pack hive become one for the good of all and absorb the new piece into the idea and reflect its inclusion. Okay, so that's all the notes that I had. I know I had some more, but that's all I got to today. I don't know if I started in the right place, but One Love and Wellness, Love plus Art equals Wellness. It's 5:32. I got to go. Got this meeting to do. Thanks for joining me. Heart Happy Hour, Precious Mother Love, Season 5. I am happy to share my information. And if you are interested in any of the things that I've just spoken about, like, share, subscribe, get send me some notes. Let me read these last things before I go. Where are you, my love? Farmer Josie Don Don. Okay, I'm in Washington D.C., darling. And let's see, for climate change, that you need to change yourself. Yes, your hair look like a fire hazard. Yes, I know. If it get too much heat, I'll probably blow up and be like poof. But that'll give me. They used to cut hair with fire like that, so it probably give me a nice old haircut. I think you got a Homer Simpson going on under the weird. Homer Simpson going on under the weird as Koofy. That's interesting. If you put something around his head, he probably would have a resemblance of a head like mine. Okay, go condition your hair. Yes, girl. Oh, or whoever you are. Let me see, who is that? Louise or Lewis. Yes, I know. I put some coconut oil on it and everything. I just washed it. But yeah, this heat is just really frying it even more and more. But in any case, I did, groom it today. It did get touched all over because, I actually just groomed it with my hands and my fingers. And yes, there is oil on it. And there are some curls in there somewhere. So, yeah, like that, all over the place. So, one love and wellness, guys. You guys are too funny. Ashe, I appreciate you guys for hanging in there with me. Peace and positive energy. No music today, but it's coming back next episode. Peace.